And he says there's been a terrible accident, and Jim Clark's in the accident, and it looks very bad. And then I said, well, he's all right, isn't he? And they said, well, it's looking very serious. He didn't want to tell me. He then came back round a matter of 15 minutes later and said, look, I'm very sorry, they say that Jim Clark has died. Jimmy died on the 7th of April. Mike Spence died driving my own car at Indianapolis on the 6th of May. Ludovico Scarfiotti died, and I think it was the 7th or 8th of June. And Joe Slessor died on the 7th of July. One driver a month. Each month, one of our close friends died who was regularly racing with us. And we were a very small group of people. Travelled, lived in the same hotels together, played the same games together. I mean, it was a very close community. And we all raced on the 7th of August that same year, 1968. And, you know, we all expected somebody to die. It was a terrible feeling. And it was at the Nürburgring, which was the world's most difficult, dangerous and demanding circuit. We raced in fog and rain like I've never seen before on a track, and today it would never have been allowed to take place.
You could call it the Grand Prix that nearly got lost. Lost in fog and torrential rain, 3,000 feet up in the Eiffel Mountain. Now in these nightmare conditions, Jackie Stewart's Matra Ford leads the field in the German Grand Prix at an average speed of nearly 87 miles an hour. He's number 6. Into second place, Graham Hill, Lotus Ford number 3, to retain his lead for the world title. Jochen Rindt, Brabham Repco, 3rd. After nearly 600 waterlogged miles, Scotland's Jackie Stewart is first to the flag. You'd think he'd need something stronger after all that.
And I won the race, probably my best race of my career. But nobody died. And it was the first question I asked when I got out the car, have there been any accidents? I mean, a silly thing to ask if you think about it, but because of what we had been through. In those days, the batting average of racing from about 68 through 73 was that if you raced for 5 years, there was a 2 out of 3 chance you were going to die. Safety was so basic and primitive, and accidents were so big. Fire was involved, cars were not as they are today. Facilities were not as good on the track as well as the medical facilities off the track. Nothing was right, really. We were fighting for every improvement. And of course, with so many people dying, it was a depressing fight, and even more frustrating because people were dying and still we were fighting against bureaucracy of track owners and governing body to try and break through this barrier of awareness. And, you know, I had a so-called successful year, if you like to put it in those terms. Won the US Grand Prix, the German Grand Prix and the Dutch Grand Prix, I think. But of course lost great friends, including Jimmy.
Minus 15.
If you love someone and you know that you're aware of the dangers I thought I had to live with it. To actually watch someone doing it, and you're hoping and praying that you just wish it to be over and get on with the next race. And they just don't understand what it is, knowing and that you could lose them. So therefore, no, I did not enjoy racing. I enjoyed very much the people. I made a lot of nice friends. I lost a lot of friends, but I liked the people there. They were fun. It was always nice to do that. But when it actually came to practice, I would sort of go into a shell and I wouldn't talk to anyone during a race or during practice. It was the only way I could cope with it.
You know, the racing driver themselves, if I ever had a crash driving a racing car, it would be no big deal to die, because you're busy trying to recover the accident, you're trying to get out of it, you're trying to use your instincts, and it's all so millisecond fast that really you wouldn't feel a thing. And it's a selfish world in that respect. But for a wife, she's sitting in the pit lane or sitting at home, and she's hearing all of those accidents all of the time, and sometimes seeing them, and certainly seeing the devastation to those families, attending the funerals and the memorial services. And here's your husband saying, I'm going out to race again tomorrow or the next day, or I'm testing this afternoon. It really was a very selfish, unfair thing to be doing. But it was my profession. It was my life. It was everything. And of course Helen was seeing all this, and I was an absent father for much of that time. Although I was at home a lot, I would be rushing off to race and test and travel and so forth. So it was a very hard time on her. I thought she dealt with it. I mean, I'd take my hat off. I respect her so much for how she dealt with that.
Stewart, now living in Switzerland and driving for Ken Tyrrell once more, finished third in the 1968 World Championship. In 1969, he took the title for the first time, and with 6 victories in the first 8 Grand Prix, he won it in spectacular fashion.
Tyres to burn, records to smash in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, where a long-haired Scotsman will confirm his reputation for precise, orderly mastery of the circuit. Jackie Stewart is about to become the world drivers' champion after one of the most closely contested events in the history of major motor racing. One by one, the other great names come up to challenge Jackie's Matra Ford: Jochen Rindt, Denny Hulme, Piers Courage, Graham Hill, and one by one they hammer at the heels of the 30-year-old Dunbartonshire Flyer. One by one, Jackie deals with them in his cool, calm, collected fashion. Beginning with club racing in Scotland 8 years ago, he won his first Grand Prix in a BRM in 1965, and that was here at Monza. As the highest paid driver in Europe, said to be knocking back about 100,000 a year, he lives in Switzerland to keep something more worthwhile from the taxman. Jackie's partnership with Ken Tyrrell's Matra Fords has become the biggest thing since Lotus Fords and Jim Clark. After over 240 miles at an average of nearly 147 miles an hour and an incredibly narrow 0.08 of a second defeat of Jochen Rindt's Lotus Ford, Jackie Stewart reaches the climax of his career.
My World Championship didn't dawn on me for quite a while. And in fact, the first recollection I had of the real meaning of it was when I stepped downstairs from the first floor at the apartments in the Village Estate to hear the hall porter, the concierge, trying to secure me a confirmation of my seat on the flight. And this man saying, you know, the grand champion, the world champion, Jackie Stewart. Oh my God, that's me.
There's one photograph in one of my scrapbooks where it says a lot to Jackie and I. We're just looking at each other's eyes. Just the happiness in our eyes was just unbelievable.
A triumph for the Stewarts and for team boss Ken Tyrrell.
He really allowed me to win races in the best way. He taught me how to listen and how to communicate with mechanics and engineers. And he was the world's best team manager.